Hi, I'm MJ Hecox here at Leopold's, where we like to pair our bottles with books. The holiday season is coming, and that can be a really tricky time to pair wine with food, right? Because sometimes you get savory, sweet, salty, umami all in one meal. But there is some trick to handling that situation, and that's bubbles. The refreshing acidity, the mousse, they just clean your palate and get you ready for that next bite, really of any flavor. Our featured wine this month is Enrico Serafino. These are Italian bubbles from Piemonte. They're made in the champagne style without the prohibitive price. This is a super lauded bottle by critics, but we also have many bubblies for your holiday season, from Greece to Spain. So come on over to Leopold's and let's get you hooked up with your holiday wine stash. Cheers.
Hello and welcome to Cooking with the Cap Times. We're so happy to have you here, whether you're joining us online right now via the live stream or if you're here in person. We do have an in-person audience of Cap Times members, and if you would like to be one of them in the future, you can do that by becoming a member, giving any amount to support our newsroom at membership.captimes.com. We're right now in the middle of our year-end membership drive. We're trying to raise $60,000 to support our newsroom by the end of the year, so your help is very appreciated, and also you get fun perks like being here, eating delicious food, drinking wine. We would like to thank our sponsors of Cooking with the Cap Times, our official kitchen sponsor, Kesnick's. You can shop like a chef here. It's open to the public, and they have all of your kitchen supply needs. They also host us every month in this beautiful space. We're so grateful to them. We'd also like to thank our wine pairing sponsor, Leopold's. They select a wine every month to pair perfectly with each dish. They're a beautiful place for wine, books, coffee, cocktails, also everything I could possibly want. So stop by and visit them. We would also like to thank our video partner, Hinckley, for making this live stream possible. And then our chef tonight is Marie Young from Breton Bakery, and I'm going to pass it over to her and to our food editor, Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Beck. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Lindsay.
So to open us up, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, about your journey to cooking, and about Breton?
Okay, sure enough, thanks. It's an honor to be invited here this evening. I'm a graduate of the Madison Culinary Arts Program, or MATC. So I graduated 2002, so a long time ago.
All right.
And so I've done a lot of different work as a chef, as a pastry chef. I've traveled around the U.S. a little bit, doing different culinary adventures, and so in my late 20s I opened up my first bakery, and first and second bakery in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and then I moved back to Madison, worked as a pastry chef at a couple different places, and then took about a 10-year break and thought that I was done with the culinary world, but the culinary world was not done with me. So I had an opportunity 5 years ago to launch a very small, modest bakery enterprise just to fit the bill, and pay my bills while I was finishing my undergraduate. And it turned into the Breton Bakery, which I have, which is located at 1924 Fordham Avenue here in Madison, Wisconsin. So it's just sandwiched between East Johnson and North Sherman, for those of you who are not quite familiar with Fordham Avenue, and we have this great storefront. It's the old New Orleans takeout building, and we've been there. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So we make all kinds of traditional French pastry, or Breton pastry, really. So we make pain au chocolat, croissant. We make the cuigamon, which is what I think is our best seller for sure.
It's so good. And if you look at a process for the cuigamon, it's like pages and pages and pages, and you're like, oh my God, I'll never do that. But they're so good, though.
Yeah, so I decided not to do that here today.
No.
It's a very involved process. So instead, really what I wanted to do is bring a little taste of, Brittany, which is a region of France that juts out into the Atlantic coast. It shares coastal waterways with the Channel across from England, and then the North Atlantic or Atlantic Ocean. And so that is the land of my foremothers, going back generation after generation. And so that's why I took on the name. Breton is actually not French. It is the original Gaelic language, which is called Brésigue. So I will be teaching you guys some Brésigue tonight to go along with the crepes, which are a traditional Breton, I would say Breton dish. I mean, pancakes and flat pancakes exist in like every culture. You know,
Yes,
you got your Swedish pancake, your American pancake, your Chinese pancake. I mean, it's ubiquitous. You know, it came from the Bronze Age is when they first see traces of cereals being combined with water and baked on flat stones.
I love
and
it.
So,
I love it.
so this is our version of that.
Yeah, just really quick, I don't want to forget this. You do demos and classes. It's like during the holiday season I saw. So just like an opportunity here to plug.
Yeah.
Like you do cooking classes, right?
Yes, we do. We do a cookie. The cookie class series just ended, so it's a 4-hour class that's held right in the kitchen at Breton Bakery, and we have anywhere from 2 to 8 people attending at one moment, and it's a lot of fun. You get a chance to come in and eat a lot of cookies and leave with a tin of cookies, and
I love that.
Learn some things that are a little bit, and then I talk a lot about different types of flour and how you can blend your own and just the science behind some of the baking that I do. And then coming up, we're going to have some workshops in January. It's limited. I think I'm only doing 3 workshops in January, which is a pastry chef workshop where you can come in and learn how to make queen amande and all butter croissant, and you do like a little run of it. And then we provide the dough, and you just come in, we get you an apron, and we have a good time, and then we bake whatever's made, and then you get to take it home. So it's a lot of fun.
Lamination, all right.
Yeah.
That sounds challenging, but
Yes,
awesome.
yes.
Especially like for an experiential gift. If there's somebody in your life who doesn't need more stuff, but they would love to learn how to make croissants.
Right, exactly.
Do it up.
Yep. So you can go to my website, which is www.farbretonbakery.com, and just scroll down, and then the link to the classes is right there.
Sweet.
And you can also order pastries online and have them ready for us. We'll have them ready for you to pick up, and so we've got all kinds of options now.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get started on crepes.
All right. So I'm kind of going to start a little bit down here, and I'm going to work my way towards
We're
this
gonna work
side.
this way. Okay.
So so buckwheat pollen was found in Brittany, dating back to the Bronze Age, as I mentioned. So the crepe that was made from buckwheat was an ideal solution for any time that there was like any kind of crop failure. The buckwheat plant itself came from Asia by way of the Dutch. What's really valuable about buckwheat is that it grows in 100 days, and it's called like the 100-day plant. So if 100 days, that's just over 3 months to go from seed to a full stalk like this. And then the stalk is red. It's a member of the rhubarb family, so it looks a lot like a skinny, strange rhubarb in the wild if you see it out there. And
it doesn't have gluten in it, right? It's
correct.
gluten-free.
It's gluten-free. Now, when we make it with crepes, we do combine it with some measure of wheat flour just to get that elasticity so that the crepe holds together. Back in the day, they didn't do that, so the crepes traditionally would have been thicker and probably a little bit more crispy.
Oh, okay. Well,
because of the lack of wheat. Right. So wheat was sort of like the fancy commodity. So as you had money, you could add wheat flour to things, and it wouldn't have to be just straight buckwheat. But the taste for buckwheat has remained due to I think there was a rise in having crepes as a staple food in Brittany because there was 2 massive famines in France between 1693 and 1710 due to crop failures. So now, buckwheat as a species is immune to diseases that affect other cereal crops, such as the notorious ergot fungus, which affects rye crops, which they think may have had some part to do with, like the Salem witch trials. They think that was ergot poisoning. Right. So
That they think it was like basically a fungus or a mold or whatever that was growing that was making people
hallucinate. Yeah, exactly. So you don't want that in small communities.
I remember that. That's a good story.
It's not good. It's not a good thing. So buckwheat's immune to that, which is awesome. And so today, most of the buckwheat that is manufactured does come from either China or Poland or Canada. Now, there is a small supply of protected origin buckwheat producers. It's about 800 producers right in Brittany, and they have 10 millers, and they produce 4,000 tons per year. And it's very fancy and a little bit expensive. Guess what we get to have today? So this is the mes crêpes au sarracine. So sarracine is the buckwheat. Now it does have a measure of wheat flour in it, plus I added a little bit. But we're going to taste this one, and then I'm going to be making just so you know, during the demonstration part, I'm going to be making the buckwheat with, you know, good old Bob's Red Mill, organic. Because there's so few ingredients in crepes, I feel like this is an area where you can really shine and really get really nice ingredients. So I've got, you know, organic whole milk that has the cream top on it, because I like that little edge of extra fat to make things delicious. You know, the flour I grabbed from my bakery. We've got cake flour and all-purpose flour, King Arthur, and then some high-end cake flour to go with it. We have, I borrowed Lauren's fancy cane sugar organic.
Nice.
So, because I forgot it. And then I did order online some of beurre de Barat, which is fabrique en Normandie. So Normandy, geographically, is right next to Brittany. It is considered a separate culture. So I don't know how many of you know, like, a French person, but the French tend to be a little territorial about. He's gonna laugh back there. There's another European back there. He's gonna laugh. So even like in Brittany, in my great-grandmother's era, where women who would be out working in the fields wore a special headdress called a coiffe. And so usually in France, you've got one of a couple professions. If you're a woman, you'd be working with fish, you'd be working with crops, you'd be a lace maker if you were sort of a fine lady, or you would be a baker. So being a baker is like right in the wheelhouse. And I didn't know that when I started, you know, I did the culinary thing because I'm passionate about food, but I didn't realize going down the road of a bakery and pastry chef was right in my lineage. So that's pretty cool.
It says higher fat usually, right?
Oh, yeah. So what they do is, so they take the butter and they salt it and then they press it and they work out all the water out of it. So you can find all kinds of cool videos where they've got these paddles, these wooden paddles that have grooves on them, and they'll take them and they'll go smack, 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 and they'll work all the water out of the butter and make it very concentrated. So this is that stuff, and so this is fabulous.
I'm so excited.
Anyway, so like I said, I couldn't get anything from Brittany shipped to us. It wasn't available at the portal I looked at, but this is from next door, so this is from Normandy. Anyway, back to the coiffe.
Yeah.
So we're a different coiffe depending on what village you were from.
Oh, sure,
so
okay.
There's just a plethora. So if you looked across the field and you saw a group of women, you could tell what village they were from based on what kind of headdress they wore.
Nice.
So
okay.
they got the really beautiful cone, the tall cone ones, which I believe are from Morbihan. And then you got the little, very modest cap that just almost covers just the bun and has a couple little lace curls that come down. That's the kind that my great-grandmother, Marie Arzel, which is my name, she would have worn that cap.
Got it, okay.
So, anyway, so the crepes from Lower Brittany, which is actually the closest to the Atlantic, are called, I'm going to try to get this right, crepes. So it's Krampouezh. So crepes is the name.
Okay.
Is the name of, if you're getting
Sounds like Krampus.
Yes.
This is like the bad guy, right? For on Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got a different flour blend if it's a sweet crepe or a buckwheat crepe. Traditionally, we would be using a bilig, which is a cast iron cooking plate. However, my shipment for my crepe pan did not arrive, so we're going to do this old school, just like the way I was raised here in Madison, Wisconsin, when my mom would make crepes for us on a Saturday morning. The bummer was, that we could only turn out one crepe at a time, but here we've got multiple burners. Okay. So we'll do multiple crepes at a time. So I'll turn out a sweet one and a savory one for the camera, and then we'll cook it up.
Is the cast iron bilig shaped like this?
It is not. It is flat.
So almost like a flat top.
It's almost like a flat top. It's almost like this is inverted.
Oh.
And so if I could have found my actual cast iron at home, I was debating seasoning the backside of it and making it on the backside. So that's what you would have found over a fire, like in the hearth of a little cottage in Brittany, would be a piece of cast iron like this that's inverted, and then the crepe would be made on the backside.
Does it make it easier to flip, or you don't have to flip it?
Yeah. Well, the ones that are buckwheat do need to be flipped twice, and then usually even the sweet ones need to have a little bit toasting on the other side.
Okay.
But I think it is somewhat about access, and then also you'd be using a what's called a rondelle, which is a stick that's got this weird little triangular piece of wood at the end, and it's used as a spreading paddle. So again, I don't have the right equipment today, but this is what most people here
This is what we're gonna have at home, right? Yeah.
And I want to inspire everybody to try to make crepes at home. That it's like, if you don't have a crepe pan, no big deal. We'll just do it this way. And it's more about getting the batter to the right consistency that you can do it out of these pans. And I just tested it a little bit before we started, so I know that this works.
All right.
All right, so I think that's all I have.
So you
for
grew up
notes.
making crepes, yes?
I did. I actually used to have friends over. I'd have a crepe party, but they'd have to be patient because I could only make them one at a time.
That's great.
That was one of my memories, is sitting there waiting for my turn for the hot crepe, which I would just scarf because, I had to wait, 10 minutes because there was me and my two sisters,
Everybody
and
else
then my
wants
mom
one,
and
yeah.
dad, that everybody wants their turn. So
yeah, for sure.
anyway, so we're gonna go through how to make. Again, this is, very, very simple recipe. So, get the best ingredients you can. I did find these groovy, regenerative, pasture-raised, organic, large grade A brown eggs. So
Those pretty ones.
yeah, so we've got some beautiful eggs. Yep. So we'll take a couple of these and get started here. So we'll start with the sweet one first. Let's see. Let me have you hand me my whisk. That's at the end of the wooden butcher block.
Sure.
So it's gonna go right
One
there
thing I
for
did
it.
forget to mention in my little intro was that if you would like to ask questions of Lindsay and our chef throughout, you
Yes.
can do that by putting them in the chat or the Q&A box in the Zoom, and then I'll relay them to them. We'll get those answered. And the person with the best question will win a bottle of wine from Leopold's, the one that's paired with this dish. So you can make this dish yourself, have the actual wine pairing. Bring in those questions.
And it's bubbles. It's bubbles. I am so excited that she did bubbles. There's bubbles coming later, you guys.
All right, so we're gonna take 2 eggs and just crack them in the bowl, and then just give them a little whisk. And the way my mom would teach me how to do these is that she said you have to listen for a certain sound. And,
How do they sound when they're
It
done?
makes like a bloop 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 sound. So we're gonna try it out and see if that translates beyond the family translation. So I do have these in metric. So did we give a?
Yeah, the edited
Standard.
recipe has both volume and weight. I sort of translate it as best I can. I do say, though, in the top of the recipe, and I think I've said this a lot, if you have a scale, use a scale. Everybody needs a scale. Just get a scale.
You do get better results.
You get better results, but
Yeah.
also it's just easier. You end up with like one bowl on the scale, and you add stuff to it and tear it out, and add stuff to it and tear it out. And just, this is better for your life.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, you have one bowl instead of multiple cups to wash.
Yes. Yeah, it's so much easier, and it's more consistent.
Yep, so we've got 100 grams of this lovely sugar.
Ooh, all
We're
right.
gonna go ahead and pop that in there. Now we're gonna do something a little bit different. For this particular one, I decided to add a little lavender syrup instead of vanilla.
Ooh, I love it.
Yeah, I just went up to Door County and I went to the lavender farm and I got this, so
I want to smell it.
yeah.
We do have a question from Zoe. She wants to know, she says she's excited for crepes tonight, and she wants to know what tips do you have for making them for a crowd?
Try to get as many pans going as you can. That's the best way to do it. I feel like they're really awesome when they're super, super fresh. So, once they've sat a little bit, you can stack them, put them in, like maybe in a covered oven, put a little, drape them with a little bit of cloth. But really, they're the best when they're really, really piping hot. So, or you could get some, you could make it almost like a fondue party where everybody's making crepes if you have access to that many pans, or have a large multiple stovetop and you don't mind all cramming in there like sardines.
Or, Kesnix has these amazing little like individual burners that you can plug in. They're little induction guys, and that's if you need something extra, if you want more space. That's a cool little thing to have it for.
They're great for camping too.
Oh yeah.
They're great for camping. You've got your little stove.
Marie, is it okay if I pass this around for folks to smell?
please,
Okay.
please, yeah. And if you guys
Abby,
want
you
to
wanna
put
pass it
some in
down?
your water, go for it.
Yeah.
It's fine. Yeah.
Put some in your
Yes.
water. It's not like super lavendery, which I think is smart because otherwise it'll just smell like grandma's
Right.
soap,
Yeah.
You know, like lavender can get. Yes.
So I did put 50 grams of butter in a saucepan, which is enough butter for both the sweet and the savory, just to be a little bit time efficient. So I'm just going to let that sit for a second, and I'll get everything else into the.
Because you don't want to put it in right now or it'll cook your eggs, yeah?
Well, it's more like it's better to put it in at the end because it'll help coat the fat molecules will help coat the flour, and you'll end up with a
cool.
more tender product. So I got a pinch of salt going in, and then we're going to go ahead and weigh out our flour blend, which is 50-50 cake flour and all-purpose flour. So
The cake flour is going to be really tender, I would
Correct.
imagine. Like,
right, and it's not going to really provide much in the way of structure. It's there because you don't want, like you would never want to use bread flour, for example, because your cups are going to be too tough. And
okay.
so this is a way of sort of diluting the gluten that's in the all-purpose, but still providing it with the starch so it's the right texture. You've got the right amount of carbohydrates or flour starches happening. So.
Tracy would like to know, have you used maple syrup or honey instead of sugar?
Oh, yeah.
And how would those work?
Yeah, that would be fine. Those are almost considered like an invert sugar. So any kind of like a liquid sugar or sugar that's liquid at room temperature would be like your honey or your maple syrup. That's absolutely fine. I don't see a problem with that. In fact, what you might want to do if you're going to add that is you might want to go a little heavier on your all-purpose. Instead of doing 50-50 all-purpose and cake flour, what I would do instead is I would go maybe 75% all-purpose, 25% cake, so it's a little bit stronger so that the syrup doesn't cause it, the recipe to kind of fall apart, if that makes sense. So, all right, so then we've got 125 grams of our cake flour in here. So over a total of, that's just a hair over, but I think that's
in
okay.
terms of like percentages, like cake flour is what, like 9%? Gluten versus all-purpose is more like 10 or 11. I interview these authors of baking books, and there's so much science in baking books, and I was never strong in science. So I've been trying to like remember some of these things that I've like vaguely learned.
All right, so we've got the eggs, butter, salt, and sugar. So actually I am gonna go ahead and put the butter in at this point because that's what my recipe says to do. And I don't want to make a last minute change and then have regrets later. So I'm going to just kind of drizzle it in while I'm whisking the eggs to keep them from curdling. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take about half the flour, pop that right on top. And then I like to do...
The wet, dry, wet.
Yep,
Dry,
so
wet. Dry,
we're doing
dry.
just the milk, and then we're doing milk plus mineral water for the savory. So this one, it was for half of a liter, it works out to just over 2 cups. It's like 2.11. Yeah, so there we go.
That's in the recipe too.
Yep. So we'll go ahead and we'll put half the flour plus 1 cup of milk and get that guy.
So we have a special someone watching today who wanted me to tell Marie that her sister Madeline in London is watching.
Hi, Madeline. That's awesome. So I have an incredibly both my sisters are very talented, but if I can give Madeline a plug, she's working on her PhD at a new college in London, and she's a professor of economics.
Oh, cool.
And I'm just incredibly proud of her accomplishments. And she's making a difference working with NGOs across Africa on modern mining issues.
Nice.
So she does she just spoke at the House of Lords last week. So very, very proud of her. So
That's amazing.
glad she could make it. So, so I'm adding the other half of the flour and the milk.
And then we do have one other question. Elizabeth wants to know, what are some traditions of eating crepe out of the house in Breton, like in creperies and on the street?
Ooh, I love that question.
Say that one more time. I didn't catch
What
the
are
whole
some
thing.
traditions of eating crepes out of the house, like in creperies and on the street in Breton?
Well, I mean, like I said, we had our own tradition at our house with 1 or 2 frying pans trying to, making crepe was sort of an ordeal for my mom. She'd make like a great big bowl and, until we were allowed to eat crepe until our face fell off. It was wonderful. So we had ours with jam. That was our tradition, was any kind of preserve. We were big on that. I know that, just from having read stuff about, crêperies around France, I think the number one favorite filling is Nutella.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So, and that's, surprisingly enough, Nutella was not something that I really experienced growing up. That was sort of a later in life kind of a thing.
I used to do butter and sugar crepes when I studied abroad in London when I was a kiddo in college, and then did a couple of days in Paris, and I was like, that's cheap, it's food, it's right here. This is so great. And I wouldn't get them filled with hardly anything because the least expensive ones were like the sugar and the butter and the cinnamon,
Right.
Easy peasy.
Yeah. And there's a place downtown whose name is temporarily escaping me, but they make wonderful ones with honey.
Bradbury's.
Thank you, Bradbury's, honey and sea salt. And so I brought honey and we've got sea salt. So if anybody wants that when we go to eat.
That sounds great.
That sound that I was talking about when you make it, and I don't know if you can get the audio on it, it's got to make like a bloop, bloop, bloop sound. But other than that, you can also go with, it should have the consistency of heavy cream. So it should be runnier than you think it should be, but that's appropriate. It should be like heavy cream where you've got some, but then it kind of drips.
Got it, okay.
And this should sit for as long as you can stand it. Refrigerated preferably. You want to give the flour time to absorb and kind of come to that middle ground. You may want to add water or more milk after the fact.
Thicken, yeah,
because it'll thicken as it sits, and that's appropriate. And then you just add a little bit of water to adjust. So like when I came in, I was warming up these pans and trying it out to make sure I had the thickness, because the way we do it, unlike where you've got a rake, basically a crepe rake where you're raking it across the pan to get that nice smoothness, the way we did it at home, and the way I would encourage people trying it at home, is you're going to pop it in the center of the pan and you're going to rotate the pan instead.
Like yeah.
Yep.
So
and
it's pretty thin. So if it's too thick, you add a little bit more milk. If it's too thin, do you add a little bit more flour, or do you just rest it longer?
You could rest it. Like I said, it's nice if you have a chance to make it the night before.
Sure.
But this doesn't. I'm not rigid per se about cooking, because I feel like there's flexibility with cooking. You don't have to be, if you know some of the tricks, then you don't have to be rigid.
Yeah,
so.
That's the nice thing too. Like if you've got people at your house the next morning and you want to have something interactive, you could have made the batter the night before, right?
Yep, exactly.
Pop it on there.
Yep, exactly. And then then all you have to do is put out your array of spreads, and then there's a lot of, kind of traditional fillings that go with this. That would be on the, let's see.
I included them at
Yes.
the bottom of the recipe.
Yes.
Yeah.
So of course
these are great.
We list Nutella number 1. There's also lemon sugar. If you're really ambitious, you could attempt to do a crêpe Suzette. So that's your flaming orange butter sauce with Grand Marnier and cognac.
I think I found a Mark Bittman recipe for that, and I linked to it here.
Yes.
So if you have this online, you can see that little link.
I'm not in a space right now that I want to handle flaming alcohol sauce for you fine folks.
Flaming alcohol sauce.
So there's the honey butter salt. There's a salted caramel sauce, whipped cream, toasted nuts, fresh berries. Sky's kind of the limit.
Oh, wow.
For savory, we've got the option tonight of fried egg. I brought some slices of ham. We've got the Emmentaler cheese, so it's like a nice.
Do you grate it or do you melt it?
I grated it because it's going to go on the crepe as soon as we flip it.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to put it on there. I want it to melt, and then before I fold the edges in, and then we put the ham and then a little fried egg on top.
Yum.
You could also do spinach, sautéed mushrooms, salmon, goat cheese, caramelized onions. I've even read like a boiled potato that's kind of smashed up, nice and hot. So any kind of ingredient that's going to go on a savory, you want to make sure that it's kind of warmed up as it goes on the savory. Asparagus, ramp pesto, fresh herbs, like you got your tarragon, your thyme, or your classic, the herbe de Provence. which I discovered when I was reading about this, that in France they actually don't put the lavender in, that's an American contribution to making things seem French, but it's actually not French.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting because
America.
I like lavender in my eau de Provence, but to me that's what makes it special. You get like one little tiny
bit,
little
yeah.
tiny little bit, not too much. So I know. So, but I mean, we're the land of invention, and improv.
Yeah, for sure. These are very similar to palatsinki or palatsintas, which is the Slovak version of this. And our fillings were always cottage cheese, jam, and cinnamon sugar. So that's classic. And it occasionally we would get to have them for dinner, and it would be like breakfast for dinner.
Oh, it's so nice.
Because it's like sweet, but yeah.
A couple more questions. Chris wanted to know what kind of milk you use, what you recommend as the best.
I really like organic cream top whole milk. They're not sponsoring me in any way, shape, or form. This is not a sponsored enterprise. But I feel like, again, because it's such simple, it's just a few ingredients. You might as well get the best ones you can get. So for me, that means I prefer organic stuff that's got a little bit extra richness. Spend a couple bucks on it.
I would be low-key tempted to just use eggnog this time of year.
For a sweet crepe. Well, it's got
Eggnog in your crepe.
Sure, I mean, why not?
It's just because when you talk about like that rich dairy,
Yeah, yeah, you could.
And then
that
Beverly,
could open up a whole new, line of
new room.
fillings, that you could be putting in there. Chopped
many
up
options.
elf.
Beverly wanted to know, she says she does a lot of cooking with her mother's very old Griswold fry pan. Do you think that would work for crepes?
Yeah, what you want to do is make sure it's seasoned, and I was doing what I refer to as dirty seasoning, which is you take your pan, you heat it up, and you brush it, make sure there's no debris, heat it up, put some clear oil in it. We've got sunflower oil. You could also use canola oil. I'm not a big fan of using anything that's got soy, so I stay away from vegetable oil. But any kind of like a neutral oil, so rapeseed oil would also work. So you heat up your pan, you pour some oil in it, let it get a little bit starting to smoke, turn the heat off, wipe out all your excess oil, let the pan cool down. And so that's going to kind of semi-polymerize the surface so that when you heat it up again, then you can add your butter and you're going to have much less a chance of sticking. So you can use old beat up pans, which is what I specialize in at home. So, because for me, it's about what we're eating. It's not really, don't get me wrong, I like a nice all clad.
Yeah. No, that reminded, that's something I've heard of people doing when they're doing wok cooking. Right? You put a little bit of oil in, you heat it up, you swirl it around, and then you dump that oil, and then you put your oil in that you're cooking with, which I'm 100% too lazy to do, but I love that. Like, that's a good idea, and it's coating it a little bit. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right, so now we're on to the savory. This is
Making
the savory one, right?
So again, starts with 2 eggs, 7 grams of sea salt. So it's like a heavy pinch. I did this earlier, so I'm confident that a heavy pinch is right. We got our melted butter in our little saute pan, or a little, not saute pan, our little saucepan. Shame on me.
Yeah, you get the idea.
Yeah, I haven't been a chef for 25 years, but
That's all good.
it's all right. It's all right. I'll cry that I'm running a business.
I got overwhelmed at a church dinner, so I can't even talk.
'Tis the season to be discombobulated. All right, so we got our 25 grams of melted butter, and then this one. Now I've read some recipes that said that you don't want more than 30% of the formula to be white flour if you're going to make a true buckwheat crepe. However, again, the more buckwheat you have, the more friable the crepe is going to be because of the gluten structure. So it'd be better to. This one has got 150 grams of buckwheat flour and 100 grams of all-purpose flour. So I did go with the all-purpose over, is there an extra bowl? Oh, there's one under the grill. Okay. I didn't even have to make a panic face at Lauren, that's great. All right, so.
Lauren loves the panic faces. She's good at responding.
So it's a slightly different bowl. So I'm just going to tear this out. And then we'll have extra cut batter if we run out of the stuff that I already pre-made.
All right.
So that'll be very good. So back to my all-purpose flour. I need 100 grams. I'd say it's close to a cup. For those of you who don't have a scale at home, maybe 3/4 of a cup is 100 grams.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly the measurement that I put in there, but I did use a volume measurement as well.
And then we've got 150 of the buckwheat.
I have bought buckwheat in bulk at the co-op. They do have it in the bulk aisle. And I store it in the freezer. I think I mentioned this before, but I store it in the freezer because anytime it's a buckwheat or a whole wheat or like a spelt flour, they just go rancid so much faster. And I really love Meadowlark Organics, and those are not as inexpensive as some other flours, and also I'm very excited about having them to cook with, so I keep them in the freezer. And it kills those little weevil things. If you've ever had
God
like
forbid.
little weevil things in your flour. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, we know what this is? Yes. Then they like, if it's been in there too long and they crawl around, it kills them. I'm not afraid of them, but I don't really want to like put them in my food. Allie's afraid of them. I don't want to put them in my food.
Yeah. It's another optional crepe flavor.
Protein.
It's protein.
Oh, that would make them, I mean, they're already not vegan, but they're like very not vegan. There's a little,
Maybe a little nutty.
little nutty.
Yeah,
Little texture.
yeah, a little texture.
But yeah, the freezer kills them off.
So this one I do like to add a little bubbly water.
I like this idea of bubbly water. Why bubbly
Yeah.
water and not like tap water, for example?
Well, I guess my thinking with this is that like a good coating for like deep frying is often made with sparkly water.
Oh.
And so that was kind of my thought, was that adding a little effervescence might help the texture be less flat and be a little bit more lively. So,
Love it.
all right.
I just fried chicken for the first time in a little while. Molly Baugh's party chicken. And it's always a question of like what I do with the oil afterwards. I never know quite what to do with the oil.
You could get,
I left it for my husband and he figured it out. I think he threw it away.
get a diesel vehicle and get it converted
Right.
so you could run your car.
I want like to do something that feels like ecologically responsible with the oil, you know?
Yes. Don't put it down your sink.
No.
That's number one. Never down the sink.
We're friends with a lot of restaurant people. They all have
Yes.
down with the oil dump, and then they actually recycle the oil, and they get paid for it.
So Lauren,
Get with one of your reasons.
Lauren is saying that chefs have oil dumps and then they get reimbursed apparently for recycling their oil. That's amazing.
They usually.
What do they use the oil for? I don't know.
Well, it depends.
They recycle the oil for something.
You can make biodiesel out of it. So it's
Biodiesel.
that somebody is buying it to make biodiesel. Yeah. I used to work at a farm that we went around and bought all of McDonald's fryers oil and made biodiesel out of it. So I'm hoping that some resourceful person.
So this is that texture, which
That
is
is
that.
kind of gray.
Yeah. I mean, buckwheat is. I think it's
It's a color.
called black flour. So that's the terminology even in Brésil is the blé noir. Hang on
And
a
will it
second.
change to this sort of lighter color as it sits? Because this is a buckwheat one too, right?
Yes, that's correct. But this is buckwheat, I think, from. Well, this is organic out of the U.S. So it might be very
and
different
this
than
one is the
what's.
French one. Okay,
That's the
sure.
French one, the one that we're going to eat. So, but yeah, that is a big color difference. So you got this
Yeah.
kind of pale brownish color here versus more of a stone
Really,
gray
yeah.
black. And it could just be the milling, like what part of the, endosperm, exosperm that they kept from the actual grain, the little tri-cornered seed of the buckwheat. But
Let's see the texture of that one
Yep.
more time.
Tracy would like to know
Ooh, yeah, okay.
if sparkling cider would work instead of a
Yes.
mineral water.
yes, yes, and that's traditional cider.
That sounds delicious.
Yes, I thought about adding it to the one that we're making, but I drank all my cider at home. So I didn't have any to throw into the recipe. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
But it's actually very traditional to drink cider with your. So talking, I think the earlier question was about traditions.
Yeah.
That would be a tradition, is to drink cider with your meal. So the savory one that's the best known is the one we're going to make, which is the cheese and ham and fried egg up against a glass of cider. So
Ooh, beautiful.
yes, okay. So magic of TV. These ones have already been made, and these are all rested. Do you want to help out?
Oh, I can.
Jump in?
Sure.
Yeah. So I think what we want to do is we're going to
wash my hands real
little
quick.
guys. Yep. Get all these little guys going here. Well, you want to start for me? Come on. This is the only one I didn't try. Oh, there it goes. There it goes.
Goodness, great.
All right,
Okay.
so I want to do a fried egg in that pan. And
So I have fried eggs in my home, and they are not beautiful enough
Okay.
to do on camera.
okay. Well, that's all right. Well, now I did choose a non-stick pan for the eggs for that purpose, because often mine are not pretty. So when you crack your eggs, do you just crack them into the pan, or do you put them in the bowl
I go
first?
crack, and then I usually, so it depends on how fancy I'm being. I will sometimes use the little strainer thing to get the extra whites out.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
it's easier to flip.
Okay.
It's not sort of all over the. Woof.
All right.
So okay. I was
Well, I
like, am I making sense?
What we're gonna do is, and I'm here to support your egg frying practice tonight, Lindsay, a little
Okay.
bit I can contribute. So we got the pan, it's warming up. What we're gonna do is we're gonna crack an egg into the bowl first,
Okay.
and then it'll be a lot easier to slip it gently into the fat,
I trust
the
you.
little pool of frying fat.
Okay.
And then I think we need to get a lid. So let's look if we can have, I think, a clear lid. I spotted one. Where did I spot one? Now this is my Julia Child moment, where I'm like, where is a clear lid? These are solid.
These are salad lids.
I had a clear lid in my hand, and I don't know what happened to it.
Over here.
It's somewhere.
Clear lid.
A lid with a clear glass.
So that we can see when the eggs are.
Yes. I spotted it.
have a clear one.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm
Up
hallucinating.
on top is a good guess.
Maybe it's the ergot. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Non-clear. I wish we had a clear one.
Okay, that's fine, that's fine. We will work it out. Is this lid here able to be used? Does this have, oh no, it's ice cream maker. Never mind, that would definitely not work. That would definitely not work. We'll use this guy.
And then Lindsay can keep an eye.
Okay. And the
That
can.
one's also solid. Great. Okay. All right, that's
Right in
fine.
here.
Let's, so the first thing we're going to do is, this is the buckwheat that I made earlier, and you can see it's very thick and syrupy. This is too thick because I tried to work with it, and it did not want to spread for me. So I was really hoping I'd have some sparkling water left, and I do. So I'm going to add a little bit. Yeah, just crack 2 in the bowl if you don't mind.
Oh, I already messed it up.
Oh, that's okay. Did it break open?
Yep.
Well, that's all right. Just give it a little funeral there in the garbage tin, and then try and go on.
You didn't know you'd be working tonight, did you?
And I've already messed up.
I put everybody to work. That's my whole look.
My mother watching me. She's horrified.
Don't mess it up, Liz.
Can I help?
Oh my gosh.
Can I help?
No shells.
Yeah, I have a shell in here.
It's okay.
I'm doing so badly.
No harm, no foul. So you know what I do is I crack it here on the edge, make a nice clean, and then just get in there with your fingers and just crack it open like that. Okay. And then you got a nice whole egg.
Yes, I
And
just want
all
to
right.
use. So this is a little trick that I don't remember where I learned this, but like the egg shell loves itself.
Oh, see, I'm learning something. I
It's
didn't know
better to
that.
do this with an eggshell than it is with your hand or a spoon or whatever, because it won't.
So we want a fairly pourable batter because it's going to hit a hot pan. It's going to try to start to set, but we want to be able to move it around the pan. So we're going to start with almost like a ball of batter in the center that we're going to kind of start to move out in a circular motion going around that way. And I think we got the temp right because these are not smoking, so that's good, because I was having a little issue with smoking earlier. But you want them hot enough that they cook fairly fast.
At home, is this like medium high? Medium-ish?
You know, it's so different if it's an electric burner versus a gas burner.
A crappy electric one.
I'd say middle of the range, and then when you're done with the crepe, if the pan is smoking, then it's too hot. And you may have to do some on off while you're making them, because you do want it nice and hot for the crepe, but then you don't want the butter and oil residue to be smoking afterwards and set off your fire alarms and cause a panic and scare your cats. I mean, this is all not ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. So, sorry, I keep grabbing the microphone.
That's okay.
All right, so next we're going to take some of our glorious butter from Normandy, and we're going to put a little pat in this pan. It's about this much butter. Nice little thin slice. Pan is nice and decent. You would not want to put your hand on that, so that means it's nice and hot. I do want a sizzle, and I don't quite have a sizzle. So I'm going to crank it up just a hair.
My stovetop likes to continue to climb after it reaches a heat. It will just keep going up, which is great. Love that. But yeah, turning it down or like pulling it off makes a lot of sense to me.
All right, let's see if we get a little sizzle going here.
Pretty you are. Looks like cheese.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got this wonderful super dairy smell. You can tell
What's that
I'm
cultured fermented
half French,
thing?
half Wisconsin. I'm like, you buy butter. I'm over here petting my butter. All right.
Let's say a little
more. And what you can do too, if oil is one way to help keep the milk solids from burning, from overheating, so you can always add a little splash of oil to kind of help things. Because it's all about the smoke point. Those milk solids have a much lower smoke point than various oils. All right, so let's just wait for that. Why don't you turn up the heat just a tiny little bit, because I would like to see some bubbles, a little bit of action happening there. All right. So this is good. It feels hotter than it did a minute ago. So I'm going to go ahead and start with our savory. I think that batter's nice and thin. I don't quite have the sizzle. Now, something Madeline might remember that my mom used to always say that the first cup is always ruined, and that meant that the rest of the batch would turn out successfully.
The first pancake roll.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly it. So that you always want to get the first one wants to be spoiled, like the sacrificial lamb of cups for the rest of them to be successful. And so true to that tale, I think this one pan isn't quite hot enough, and the batter might still be a little bit thick. Okay.
Like this is gonna brown. The butter's gonna brown.
Yep. All right. Why don't you go ahead and slide your eggs? Just get closer to the pan.
Closer to the pan. Okay.
Yep. There you go. Nice. Bloop and bloop. And then why don't you go ahead and pop that lid right on it. Okay. And then turn the heat down.
Oh, it's so fast. It goes down so fast. I'm sorry, I'm so used to being like, I'll just wait another 5 minutes for my electric stove to acknowledge that I did something.
Right.
Do we have a scoopy? A way to get it out?
We have all different kinds. Like I'm partial to these kinds of scoopies. Nice thin.
I like that one.
Yeah, this is a fish spatula, which you're not supposed to, but you know, it's a tool
so
and
great,
it works. You know, so you have your choice.
I might break it. But guess what? This is a relatable show.
You won't. Yeah.
That's
So
fine. Also, I'm probably not supposed to use this on a nonstick, but I break
I'll trade you.
Okay. It'll be great.
It matches your shirt too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. And that's got a nice little sharp, that's what I like about that particular spatula. It's got a nice little sharp edge to it. So it's nice, you can get up and underneath stuff. All right, you might want to move the fry pan this way into the heat, if it'll let you. There you go. Yeah. All right, so our crepe de sarrasin has, our buckwheat crepe has set.
Come here for a second.
Did it turn itself off? It did.
It did, yeah.
So, yep, I'm gonna go down and crank it. There we go.
There we go.
Lauren taught me.
The flame is gone.
Lauren taught me.
I was like, that seems bad.
Try that.
There we go. Thank you.
So this crepe has set and is starting to look golden. You can see that the edge on one side is starting to look toasty and buttery. Butter. Smell of toasted butter wafting.
Yeah. And what visible signs do you see that tells you that
It's become dry. The outside's become dry. The edges are crispy and starting to look golden. You can also pull it up and take a peek underneath. And I see nice big golden patches. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the pan to get the little edge of butter back so that when I put it down, it's on that surface of butter again. So it's not too big of a culinary trick. It's not like, you know, having to take the pan and doing all kinds of gymnastics with it. You know, I'm just lifting it up and then tilting the pans because I've got a little butter residue right here. Just lift it up, tilt it forward, let all that butter slide underneath, put my cut back down.
If I was at home, I might pull these.
I would pull those, yeah.
This is as much as I like
My
gluten.
vote's with you.
Yeah.
All right. May the egg force be with you. So you're just gonna get it closer.
Get it
So,
closer to the...
closer to the thing, and go on the other side because that's gonna be slide it this way. Yeah, there you go. And then right onto the plate, just gently. Dun, 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 she did it! Yes. Yes.
I'm feeling very stressed.
You got it. All right.
Okay.
So true to form, this first guy is not what I want. Do you want to hand me a little plate right there? So number 2, I have higher hopes for number 2. So
right.
this is our sacrificial. We'll leave him at the doorstep.
I mean, there's a egg in there too.
For,
I feel bad.
And you don't like that one because?
it's too thick and it's too shallow.
Oh.
Yeah, it's too small. So we're gonna go. I think what I need to do is water this down a little bit more. I really want
Oh yeah,
really
you were saying
thin.
that it was like a little bit
Yeah,
too thick, and
just-
you wanted it a little bit.
Yep, and I thought I had added some more sparkling water to it, and it was not quite there,
Quite
so
there.
we're gonna just do a little bit more and really get it much thinner because
Do you want this done?
yeah, we're getting some smoke. Yeah, that looks like that's better.
Okay.
So do a little bit more because I really want it to.
Turn it off
I can
just for the
also
moment.
just
Yeah.
pull it up and just let it hang out here. You know, wave it under the smoke alarms like I'm teasing it.
Yeah. Hey.
All right, so here we go.
Your fire is currently off, just FYI.
Thank you.
Oh, I see how you do it. Okay.
Yep.
You just gotta give it a click.
All right. All right, so this is really much more watery, and I think this is going to work out a lot better.
Oh, and
See,
you
now
have
it's
sizzle.
moving. I've got sizzle. I've got movement. You know, it's not just staying in one spot on the pan.
I think it's really interesting that you do them like one at a time. When we were doing pellet sinking at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? My mother would just make a stack of them, and they would go in the oven and stay warm.
Yep.
And then everybody grabs. And I would always just look for the ones with the crispiest edges because that was my favorite.
So now I filled up the pan. I think it's a little thick, but again, this is one of those things that, you know, you get better the more you make. So my goal was to get it all the way out to the edges so that, let's turn on your burner again and let's get some un peu de jambon. A little bit of ham.
Zoe would like to know, how long can you keep crepe batter?
Oh, raw crepe batter in the fridge, probably a couple days, a day or two.
Cover it so it doesn't get.
Yeah, so it doesn't oxidize for sure. Let's see here.
A couple days. That sounds nice
Yeah.
to be able to do.
Yeah, a couple days. But I have to say it with all honesty, like I have kept cut batter with the best of intentions, but after the initial pig out, then I'm kind of like, nah, I'm good.
How many crepes per person if you're making a?
I mean, you have to think about appetites, you know, like
Yeah, true.
some people in my family have very, very small appetites, and then there's people like me that have a substantial appetite, and so I can take down if I've worked the day before and done like a long shift and I'm calorie deficient, I can easily eat 5 filled cup, no problem. Probably not savory, but like sweet ones. Like jam-filled ones, probably 2 cups if it's like a savory. So it's sort of nice to have the option. You know, I would say that this batch that we've made for people, I mean, this is going to make probably at least a dozen cup easily. So, all right. So
This is how chefs get
put a
chef hands.
little of the
I don't have.
color, cheese.
Right. I mean, chefs just go wah and pull it.
Can I get the lid from you, honey?
The what?
The lid.
The lid. Yes. 100%.
I feel like we should do this more often.
Chris wants to know.
you.
No, you're totally helping.
Making problems.
You're
doing
fried
great.
eggs.
Okay.
You made ham.
Chris wants to know if you can freeze crepes.
Ooh.
Yes, once they're made, you absolutely can freeze them. Another thing you could do too, if you're committed to the process, let's say you make your cut batter, everybody's, you know, totally cut out, you're good, everyone's good, and you've got a bunch of extra batter, you go ahead and just make more. You can actually make like a layered cake with layers of cup, where you can put like a mascarpone cheese in between. They're usually done as like a sweet cake, but I have seen a savory cake with like a bechamel and, you know, spinach, mushroom kind of thing. Oh, that looks yummy.
It's like,
All
you're
right.
done.
All right. Give me your ham. Oh. I'm sorry, what was your question?
If you freeze the crepes, when you take them out, do you just warm them up in the oven then? Or would you reheat them in the pan?
You know, that's a good question. I have not done that, so I'm not sure. I bet if you did a little internet search, you would
Question is
find
about reheating frozen
yes,
crepes.
about reheating frozen crepes. I have not done it, but I bet someone successfully has. All right. So here we go.
I love this so much.
Edges folded in.
It's like a
Little package.
little package, a little frame for it.
Yeah, you want to get me a nice plate?
Ooh. Get out of your way, back.
Et voila. Savory cup. Yes, here we go. Yay.
Yay. And I helped. Look at that.
Yes. You certainly did. All right.
I'm gonna set this bad boy right over here.
Yes. Somebody
They're
gets to
so
eat that though before that goes cold. All right, so now let's make. Oh, I'm glad I brought extra butter. And go through these.
Favorite part?
I learned something really cute a long time ago, that mushrooms, one of, like, a lot of things in France have like a folk name or like a nickname that's sort of silly, but describes them really well, that mushrooms have the nickname of assassins du beurre, which means killers of butter. So like you put mushrooms in a pan, you add butter, the mushrooms will soak up all the butter.
Like little
you know?
sponges.
Little sponges, right. So but they're assassins.
I was like, I'm not sad about it. Like, I like that they do that.
Assassin de beurre. So I feel like this crepe is like the understudy of assassin of butter, as it does. Let me get the other guy there.
This one?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Stir it up. It's so nice having your home. This is awesome.
This one's pretty thin. Lighter in
Cooking with
color.
Lindsay.
Cooking
Yeah.
with Lindsay.
This one is much thinner. Again, this is like magic of television. I already made this at home. I did incorporate some of the buckwheat savory into the sweet, just to give it a little bit more substance, because I felt like it was a little too watery. But yeah, this is again very thin, pouring. Yes, perfect. So she's tipping the pan to get it all incorporated.
All the way around there.
Yep. And I think I'm gonna crank the heat just a little bit to get some bubblage.
I love it. The thing when I cook a lot, but I only cook at home when no one cares what it looks like, you know? So my food is very unbeautiful. Like it is just, it's rustic. It
Taste is more.
tastes really good. Yeah.
Well, so I will tell you something that I read that Julia Child said. It's an actual quote, and it was copied onto a refrigerator magnet. It's a magnet that's on my refrigerator at home, and it says in that, I always think about it in that witty Julia Child voice, that spitty accent where she would say, you know, it's so beautiful on the plate, someone's fingers must have been all over it.
Oh, yes.
So that for me is points in favor of things being rustic.
Just rustic.
Yeah, just rustic. Is that it's not too fussy. You know, it's very approachable. All right, you ready? So I'm gonna pour some batter in the middle,
right.
and I'm gonna have you tip the pan. Okay, go ahead and start. Start spinning that pan. Oh, yeah, there you go. Keep going. You're doing great. Keep going. All right. Cool. Thin and lacy. Look at that.
Thin and lacy. It's a little more this side. Okay.
Okay, so we're just gonna let that do its thing.
Crispy edges, crispy edges, crispy edges.
Crispy edge.
My favorite thing.
Crispy edge.
I haven't made palatsinki in my house for so long. I'm sorry, Mom.
Is it a family tradition?
It's a family tradition, and it's one of those things where, like, there are things that my grandmother made and my mother made, and they're Slovak, right? It's like this, and some of them, I'm just sort of like, oh, halushki takes forever. Like, it's just so, like, when we're doing pierogi or whatever, you have all these women, we're all doing it at the same time, and I'm here in Wisconsin, you know, and I'm not gonna do it just by myself. I don't make palatsinki by myself, usually. But why not?
Gotta get your kids in on the act, you know?
The cats do not like palatsinki.
Gotta get some neighborhood kids in on the act.
I do have neighbor kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, just come on over.
Yeah.
We'll make palatsinki.
Instead of a book club.
Palatsinki club.
So
Come over and eat my family's food.
If we're doing a fundraiser at the bakery right now for the French students at Sherman Middle School to come and join the bakery as little baby pastry chefs.
I love that
in
so much.
January. So I got approached by the teacher at Sherman Middle School, and I thought that was a brilliant idea. So we're doing a little fundraiser where, like, half the tips we collect at the door, we split that with the middle school kids, and so they've got their own jar fundraiser right now. I think we're at like 150.
That's adorable. I love
So
that.
We're trying
I
to
would
raise
come just
800.
for that. Yes.
Yeah. So, and someone's like, "How are you going to handle the ovens?" I'm like, "The ovens are going to be in a separate room, and we're going to have like them blocked off so that the kids can't touch them."
Oh my God,
All right.
that's
So I'm
amazing.
seeing crispy happening.
Yeah.
All right. So see, this is why the fish spatula is great. Gets underneath.
See,
Oh,
this
it's
is
a
my
little dark,
level.
but it does look like a beautiful crepe.
That's like what I want. Though.
So,
that's like my level.
Just a hair. It's just a little bit hot. So I'm going to reduce that heat down.
You had this
so,
croissant that was all chocolate dough once.
Yeah, croissant noir that we're just making. It's just making a comeback.
I love that so much.
Do you want to get me another pan? Because the second, so the
pan?
first side, or I'm sorry, another plate. Here's me not talking properly.
It's okay.
So the second side, when you flip it, it just needs a second because it's already set throughout. We're just toasting it up a little bit so there's no raw dough. And then there we have a crepe. And then we've got a variety of things we could put on it. We've got the Nutella, honey. What do you guys think? Jam? Confiture. Et voilà. Fraise? Yes, fraise. Strawberry. All right, so
This is the sweet crepe. It has the sugar in the dough.
it does.
See, and yeah, at home it would be cottage cheese and then cinnamon sugar, and that would be the whole. You just wrap
Well,
it.
that's that continuation of this
Yes.
thin pancake exists
Yes, it's like-
all over. So, and then you do it like this, and you put a little powdered sugar on it.
Ooh, yeah.
You could get really crazy and do whipped cream. To me, I feel like this is plenty of calories, and I don't know if I want to go crazy. So, who wants this guy? Well, anyway, let me show you to the camera so you guys can see a nice, beautiful lacy cup. Not too bad for thinness, and.
Anybody want a sweet
We're all
one?
set, and we're all set.
All right. Abby's
She's tribute. She's going to volunteer.
Volunteer. All right. Thank you so
Okay.
much. This is beautiful.
Yes, thank you guys.
Awesome.
And thank you to
Any more
everyone
questions
joining
before
us.
we go? Are we good?
Oh, well, this might be a long one. Someone wanted to know how you came up with the name Far Breton.
Oh, okay. This is not actually that
okay, in 10
too
seconds or
long.
less.
10 seconds or less. So, phare Breton is actually not a French word. It's a Brésigue. Phare means oven. Breton, Brittany, it actually translates to ovens of Brittany, which I thought was the ideal name. I did work there briefly at the counter on the Monroe
lovely.
Street. Yeah, the Monroe Street ovens of Brittany way back in the day. And when I was
Madison.
coming up with a new name, I was like, oh, I want that ovens of Brittany name because it evokes all the things of hominess and hearth but I was like, well, I don't want to mess with somebody else's trademark. But I thought, well, if I translate it into the Brésigue, then I've got all the rights to it. So, and I wasn't sure if Phare Breton was weird, but it seems to be working.
Yeah.
And Phare Breton is also your homey pastry. So what you do to make a Phare Breton is you actually take leftover crepe batter, you pour it into a greased pan, you put prunes in it that you've soaked in tea or brandy or rum or what have you, and then you bake it for like an hour. And we actually make these at our store. They're called phare au pruneau. So they have prunes in them, so that's traditional.
That sounds delicious.
And you bake it and it ends up like a flan when it's deep dish. It's a deep dish crepe, essentially. And
That sounds amazing.
It's the kind of thing it's just kind of similar to like your Yorkshire pudding. It's got those same kind of like heavy batter roots that you would have like with a Sunday roast. So it's very grandma kind of food, very traditional. And then I'm a Breton. I'm far from home, so I'm a Phare Breton.
That's awesome.
And part of what we do too is we try to pull traditions from other places that are hard to find. Like we make cardamom buns that are from Scandinavia. We're looking at doing some stuff that's got some Middle Eastern flavors like pistachio and rose, so that we're pulling in sort of far away things into our current foodscape.
That sounds wonderful.
And honoring, our foremothers,
Yes.
and forefathers' traditions, and kind of moving it into the next generation, I hope.
Well, thank you. That's a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Marie.
You're
Thank you for
welcome.
being
Thank
here.
you.
Yes, and thank you to everyone joining us, both those Cap Times members who are watching in person and everyone watching online. Again, if you'd like to come in person to a future Cooking with the Cap Times, you can do that by becoming a member at membership.captimes.com. We'd love to have you. I'd like to thank one more time our official kitchen sponsor, Kesmix, for hosting us, and Leopold's for providing the wine to pair with this dish. And thank you to everyone who's watching. I think we'll pick Zoe as the winner of this month's wine. You asked some good questions. So if you want to stop by Leopold's within the next week or so and pick up your bottle, they'll have that waiting for you. And with that, thank you for joining us.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yay.